Questions?
Probably the only thing I would ask is, how do you actually know these people who are going to commit suicide? Because the ones that I've been involved with, they don't actually tell anybody.
Right.
Nobody.
That's often a case of, there are sort of two groups. Those people who keep it well hidden, and it's helping people to identify some of those signs, especially with parents dealing with kids going through tricky phases, or kids being bullied at school. Recognising that if a kid's being bullied at school, for instance, that puts them at a higher risk. If there's been a death of someone close in the family, understanding that that puts someone at a higher risk. Not saying that they definitely will commit, think about it, but you just need to be a little bit extra careful. So that's the hidden. The easy ones are the people who ring you up and say, look, this is what I'm thinking, or whatever. Often we get more contact from people who say, oh, I'm worried about so-and-so, more than the person themselves calling in. And it's helping people to understand, keeping an eye out for those signs. You're never going to get it perfect, and there are those people that commit suicide and people go, there were no signs.
That's right.
But often that becomes a challenge for us as to how observant are we of the people that are around us. Society has moved from a close-knit society to a slightly more separated society, where you didn't meet in the village green every morning and chat to a bunch of people on your way to harvest crops or whatever.
And of course, we want to change that whole, I mean, the people that commit suicide who don't tell us about it, that does go on. That's what you're talking about. But I think we need a whole change in consciousness in the way we act in this country, because there are signs when people start separating and people are no longer communicating in the workplace and other places. There are signs that if society was more awake and aware, we could be tuned into those signs. And this is why one of these pamphlets here, we talk about the sorts of things to look for when people, actions, loss of interest, giving away possessions, feelings, desperateness, can't do anything right. This pamphlet here deals with some of the signs, but obviously if a person wants to, those who are determined to do it, yeah, you're right, they will go ahead irrespective.
Because all those signs there are for people, you know, if they have depression, and then those people will gradually go in and commit suicide, but there are other people who just...
They don't tell you.
What has happened to society then? Because when I look at the news now, there'll be somebody will get run over by a bus, and they call in, they get counselling and all sorts of things. When we were kids, if somebody got run over by a bus, we buried them, and that was over. No, I'm serious.
What has happened to society?
Yeah, I mean, why are we in this situation where so many people seem to be at strife and unable to cope with, you know, if you take what happened in the last war, what people went through there. You know, they seem, and yet now they're going to got to cut their bloody finger and they've got to get a social worker in. Is there something in there that is? I'm not trying to be flippant, but I can't work out why this is happening. And what are the numbers? Are the numbers between the 50s of suicide and now, are they greater, or are they proportional to the population at the time?
No, they're definitely greater. So things are more complex now, and there's more people committing suicide now. And in spite of having everything, I mean, having been to Cambodia, they have the greatest networks, there's no suicide. You come to New Zealand, where we have everything, and life becomes more complex, and people don't get what they want, they go ahead and take their lives. So you're right, it's become a complex, mixed up society. But we have to attempt to do something, to look for signs, attempt to be there for people. Because we've got to be part of the solution, don't we? Yes?
How many suicides would be related to drug taking?
A percentage would be, particularly with the youth, drugs and alcohol is a cause to suicide, correct. And a lack of identity, a sense of hopelessness in life.
Youth in particular fall into a category where either their suicide falls directly away from drugs or directly in it. There's no middle ground. So you get those ones that are depressed, say being bullied at school, that sort of thing, who move from that to suicide. And then you get that group of people who have tried to fit in by being involved in drugs, and that's just made the situation worse.
Also, you've got the
So-
drugs in a medical sense to do with mental health. Did you realise that 50% of the suicide rate is people who've been through the mental health system? So that means 250, maybe 260 people who've been through mental health will commit suicide this year. So the drugs pose one heck of a problem.
Is it the drugs or is it the mental health?
The drugs, it's been proven it's causing suicide.
Yeah, one of the problems with drugs is okay, there's always going to be some people that need drugs on an ongoing basis because there's a chemical imbalance that needs to be fixed. But what often happens, especially since they got rid of some of the institutions that dealt with people like this, is it's a case of, oh, well, here's your drugs, if you want to take them, right? But for a period of time, someone's locked up somewhere for, say, 3 months, say Henry Bennett or something or other, and they don't have any option. When you get used to taking a drug, if all of a sudden you either miss it or you have the option and you don't take it, it's like what happens to someone who's been smoking for ages and addicted to cigarettes, suddenly not being able to get near one. It has an effect on them, and unfortunately the effect of that with those sorts of situations is it goes down the suicide track because, oh, I don't feel happy anymore, therefore, and I can't get hold of the thing that made me happy, my happy pills, when in actual fact if they were taken off them gradually over a period of time rather than just suddenly stopping like that, it wouldn't have been quite so bad. Because some of those drugs are quite addictive, and although they're needed for some people, there are a lot of people who get prescribed drugs like that are not that essential. It's just that it's easier than giving someone counselling.
Okay.
It's easier to give someone a pile
Is
of
there any
pills
more
to take than
questions?
counselling.
Yes.
One of the things, I've been involved in a few suicides, and one of the things that I noticed most of the time was money. Money.
Can't pay bills.
Yeah, like huge amounts of money. My brother-in-law committed suicide, and he ran a bill of 2.15 million.
Was he a farmer or?
Yes.
Yeah, farmers are at risk in that area, and something should be done about providing loans and helping them to deal
Well,
with
the banks were stupid enough to keep lending him money.
it. Yeah.
And we had no idea. No idea at all.
This is where the coroners need to be more accurate, and the government is responsible in lots of areas, because if they were aware of the cluster groups and let people know, people could look for signs more readily and be there for these areas.
Money is often a problem from that perspective because it creates a sense of failure.
Yes.
And if I fail, then the easy way out is to kill myself.
Yeah, and it was.
And if you've got to that level, that's like digging a hole and all of a sudden you can't climb back out again. And unfortunately it's digging two holes. One is the debt hole and one is the sense of worthlessness, or I can't provide for my family, or I can't do what's expected of me in society.
Okay, we'll move on. Did you have a question,
Yes,
sir?
I did. You talked about institutions before.
Yep.
Or the lack of. Do we need to go back to that situation where we have people locked up? Were they better off then?
I think in some ways they were, because we had Lake Alliston, we're in Tokanui, and
Yeah.
people have felt a lot safer going there, perhaps on retreat.
The public
or
was safer.
they were a bit
Yeah.
sick, and the public was a lot safer.
Especially with
Yeah.
people who needed ongoing medication,
Yeah.
who, I must admit, I've gone through this when I've been to a doctor for something, and he says, take one of these before every meal, and every now and again you forget. And I've got no other issues. I'm just sort of can't be bothered or forget or something or other. I'd hate to be in my father's position where he has to take a certain number of all these tablets to do with, But in a situation where you're affected mentally, there is a number of things that come into play that cause you to either rebel against and not take your medication, or you just don't have the inclination to, or the mental capacity to remember to do it often enough.
We're not doctors, are we?
No.
So we're expected to be chemists and doctors and It's very hard.
And unfortunately, we've gone
No,
down.
no, no.
Well, I think the love ethic says a lot. We just need to care.
Yeah. See, it's
Yeah, we do.
it's fine
You
if
need
you've
to
got
care,
someone
just
around
like-
that's
yeah.
going to remind you to take your
Yeah,
pill.
that's fine, but that's not always.
See, that's where those institutions can
Right.
be handy for people. who
Anyway, let's
desperately
move
need
on. Any
medication.
more questions?
We just have the last couple of questions.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Not so much a question, but when you get prescribed a medication for a problem, there are
Yep.
quite often side effects to taking that.
Yeah,
So where does all that fit in? I'll fix this problem, but I'll create another one over there.
that's right.
So you fix that and you create
Exactly.
another one over there. So, you know,
Yeah,
most
if there's
medication-
read medication that says side effects may
I mean, you
cause,
see it on TV.
may cause depression.
They'll say, take this, and you see a whole heap
Right.
of things you can get from taking it.
Okay, let's. Any more questions? Yes.
Another one, another young guy, a 23-year-old, I used to say to him, your father doesn't set you a good example. He used to sit down and drink a dozen cans every night. And I used to say, that's not the norm. And this boy had become an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And he just hung himself one day and it was...
See, unfortunately in our society, we've made males and fathers scapegoats and we haven't empowered men to change. And unfortunately it's a terrible time for a lot of men and fathers to be alive. All that has to be changed, and this is where we need to challenge the government, and we're doing that at the moment too, about what they've got in place as support processes. Australia has better support for fathers. Australia has family mediation, and we always seem to be about 10 years behind that. Now I'd like to focus on our badges here. So all this is free, take what you want. It deals with counselling, listening skills, grief therapy rituals and so forth. And just to finish off, I'd like to take us quickly through just each one of these while we're finishing. There's the freedom fighter, and we talk about being community warriors, challenging social injustice, protects people's rights and supports victims who've had their rights taken, helps people find freedom from oppression, persecution, fear and depression. Next. This is a self-care plan that we talk to people about who are going to be involved in suicide prevention. The uplifter assists, comforts, encourages, reassures people in despair. Now we need encouragement, don't we? If we're going to do the work of being there for one another, we need a self-care plan for ourselves. Promotes hope and facilitates meaning in life, practices joyology. How do you get joy? Give me a little bit of feedback. How do you get joy in life?
Doing things you want to do.
Doing things you want to do, taking time out, going for a holiday,
Helping others, whatever.
helping others. Joy. How do you get joy, sir?
By collecting for various organisations.
Right. And that gives you a sense of purpose and meaning, doesn't it? That's wonderful. Okay, so we talk about a self-care plan. Next. Talk about leaders, because we want exemplary models in our society. People can be examples of change. Generates decision-making processes, leads by example, takes responsibility as a people's persons, empowers others to fulfill their purpose, vision and dreams. Next. These generally take 3 or 4 hours to get through each one when I'm teaching on them. Holistic healer understands the importance of spirit, mind, body and social integration when providing any form of healing. Now it's interesting when I talk to the social workers about the wounded healer and the healed healer, because quite a few recruits come to me and they say, your program deals with helping people deal with the issues so they become better examples in society. And they says to me, we've never been taught that at all the professional places. And so it says to me that we do need examples in our society. Okay, practices emotional wounding recovery, helps people think about their issues, feel their emotions. Holistic healers with compassionate hearts, with healing hands. Who's got a compassionate heart here? Ah, we're natural. Yes, ladies, yes. Loving hearts, beautiful. Okay, next. Practices crisis intervention, initiates support services to start the recovery process. I get people to work on a wellness crisis response plan to go through their lives and identify all the triggers. In other words, it becomes like a clean-up job. Also, I use a Christian model of helping people face traumatic events, binding the wounds into the cross, letting Christ carry the burden. Okay, next. Spiritual counselling. We talk about listens, reflects, empathizes, counsels, personal growth, enhances spiritual growth, helps bereaved through the stages of grief. This is how you deal with grief down here. Support behaviour required. Be there for the person if anyone's going through grief. Allow them to talk. Do not judge them, and be a passive listener. That's important. Just be a passive listener to someone who's lost someone, okay? Practices listening skills, introduction, open and closed questions. Take me 3 hours to get through that, normally. And then the insightful seer educates and enlightens, practices intuitive perception. You know the hunches that you get inside yourself? You get a hunch about different things sometimes. It's teaching people how to use their intuition and their spirit being. Okay, next. Humanitarian moderator, practices reconciliatory justice and family mediation counselling. This is what we are going to the government about currently, because Judith Collins is calling for a review into the family court process, because they want to take away the counselling, and yet the counselling, mediating family, is the answer. Okay, so that's what we need to see operating in our family courts. Family mediation and counselling, where they reconcile it between each other instead of all the lawyers coming in. They talk about the rights of the child, but they don't talk about the rights of parents anymore. Have you noticed that? They've taken the ability of parents to nurture and care for their own children away, or to discipline their children. That's another thing that's upside down.
I'm a bit worried about your politics.
Okay. Lives for higher ideals and works of redeeming mankind, defending the rights of collective humanity. Now, I like to keep it focused on the healing and being for people who are suicidal. Okay, next, there, Lance. Almost finished. Practices problem solving, messenger of hope, walks in white light, the manifest sunrise overcomer. They have the capacity of the joyologist, spreading peace. Messenger of hope is an ambassador of key to hope, opening doors to recovery. Trainer, educator, entertainer. Who are the entertainers here tonight? We'll give us another joke later on, you know, that would Yes, he's wonderful, isn't he? Any other entertainers here? People like to tell jokes and smile. Okay, and the last one is our life mentor. Coach mentoring, because the coach, mentor or supervisor understands, duplicates and promotes the different processes. As wise owls, we are all natural mentors of our own families. We've been through it and we understand what it means to be a father or a mother or a grandparent. And we become models ourselves, don't we, to those around us. And okay, there are 3 people involved in the recovery process: the helper, the helpee, and the supervisor. The helper needs someone to debrief with, someone who can act as an anchor, knowing what to do. So we talk about setting up supervisors for those who are providing a buddy support system. And the Gold Life mentor and supervisors are mediated transformers with hearts of gold. I'm sure we'll all qualify for that here, hearts of gold. Self-sacrificial community warriors who are idealistic dreamers, free-spirited and adventurous, shine forth in the spiritual sun. Okay, so who are the dreamers here? Idealistic dreamers. Do we have any here?
I spend all bloody day dreaming.
Who said that?
Okay, so that's our 12 colours, and yep, a coat of many colours. So each one of us has got one of these. So you'll identify with one or the other. We encourage everyone to become a buddy supporter, everyone to work through their grief processes, deal with the issues in life, and to become life mentors. So I just encourage you to take our pamphlets over here, and thank you very much.
Well done.
Well, Jack, it's my pleasure to thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Showing us through the nice slideshow, which has brought home to a lot of us what things happen in society. And we do things for society ourselves.
Thank you.
And for you too, Lance, all right, for your contribution, that was really good. Okay.
Thank you.
Mine, we might meet you again too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I encourage our members to take some of the pamphlets that I've had
being driven, other